Hello, everyone, and welcome to New Consciousness Review. I'm Miriam Knight, and our guest today is Dr. Dain Heer. He's an international speaker and author who started work as a network chiropractor back in 2000 in California. He came across access consciousness at a point in his life when he was deeply unhappy, to the extent that he was even planning suicide. When none of the other modalities and techniques Dr. Heer had been studying were giving him the lasting results or change, Access Conscious changed everything for him, and his life began to expand and grow with more ease and speed than he had ever imagined possible. Today, he facilitates Access Consciousness workshops worldwide from a base of total allowance, caring, humor, and a deep inner knowing. His energy process for changing and healing, called the energetic synthesis of being, is unique, and his points of view on bodies, money, future, sex, and relationships, they invite and inspire people to greater conscious awareness. And this is all reflected in his new book, Being You, Changing the World, which we're going to discuss today. So Dr. Dain Heer, welcome.
Miriam, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
Well, I really want to thank you for writing this book. It was a trip in just about every sense of the word. Do you conduct your workshops like you write your books?
Somewhat, yes. In fact, the book is actually a product of one of the advanced workshops that I deliver called Energetic Synthesis of Being, and literally we took transcripts because there's so much information that I've wanted to give people and present to them that they don't have in the world. And so I was like, how am I going to do this? And we finally came up with the idea of transcribing that and pulling out the parts that were the common threads through them. So yes, and I tell people at the beginning, I said, please be aware, I'm somebody who has ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism all rolled into one. So if I can't complete if I complete one sentence, it's a minor miracle in my world. So I warn people ahead of time.
Okay, well, why don't we start with Access Consciousness? What is it, and how did it change your life?
Oh, well, access is really, call it access, because saying access consciousness a lot is, kind of tedious. So we call it access, and it's a set of tools, techniques, and information for changing anything you want to change in your life. And what happened for me, I got to this place 13 years ago after trying so many things that literally, I said, universe, you got 6 months. Either my life changes or I'm out of here, and I don't care which it is. And literally, I came across, and I saw this ad that said, access, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory, and it had this girl's phone number. And rather than being overjoyed about ease, joy, and glory, I was frustrated because my life was pain, suffering, and gory at the time. And I threw the paper away. Well, it came out once a week. I see the ad the following week and finally called the girl. And I had a session called an Access Bar session. And it's this real gentle process of touching points on someone's head. So I lay down and she puts her hands on my head. And this is somebody who literally was not, it wasn't, when I was talking about killing myself, it wasn't one of these things where, I think maybe I'll either kill myself or I'll have a latte. It was not that. I was literally planning on it. I was in that compressed state in my life. And she puts her hands on my head and I feel this energy go through my body and I start giggling like a little kid. And it actually gave me a sense of peace and space that I hadn't had for years. And it was the first time I remember knowing everything was okay, everything always would been, and everything always had been, and everything always would be. And so literally I never contemplated killing myself again. But it gave me this sense of space. And then, in contrast to everything else I'd ever done, that space didn't decrease within 3 days to a week. It actually started increasing because she gave me tools so that every time the space wanted to contract, every time I wanted to get heavy again and unhappy, she gave me a tool to deal with it. And that was the difference that I found, is tools for each of us to change the things we want to change.
Mm-hmm. Well, your book is full of all kinds of tools. Let's talk about this notion of space and light. Tell us your take on it.
Well, here's the thing, is it's so interesting because each of us seem to have at least some sense of how it can be. Like, for example, when I talk about space and light, first of all, one tool I'd like to give everybody is, and it's a fundamental thing to apply to your life, is what's true for you makes you feel lighter. A lie makes you feel heavier. And so anytime you're buying something is true for you that isn't, it will make you feel heavier. And so what we have a sense of what it's like to be us, which it can be sort of like when you're going out in nature, as an example. After you've been there for an hour and it feels like the weight of the world comes off of your shoulders, and you start seeing colors that you didn't see and start noticing the flowers, that's kind of what it's like to be more of you. Or when you're around someone who doesn't judge you, or somebody who cares about you, or like animals and kids, that's more what it's like to be around you. To be you. But when you're around adults, when you're at work, when you're in family situations, a lot of time you feel like you have no connection to that space. And what I've learned and what Access Consciousness gave me was this ability to actually be that space that I was out in nature and with little kids and animals in any situation in my life. And when you're that space, you determine the situation in a sense. In other words, rather than it being able to make you go into defense or make you fight, it's like you stand there and you go, okay, well, that's an interesting point of view. What other choices do I have available here? And if more of us could live our lives like that, I mean, I see so many amazingly beautiful people who have no idea how much fun life can be, how much of a joy it can be, and that they can actually have a sense of ease in living. You know, part of the reason I travel as much as I do around the world is because I'd like people to know that this space of being can actually exist, that you can actually enjoy your life, that you can also be successful at it, and you can have all the things you've been asking for. It's just you haven't been given the right tools to create it in a way that works for you.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the word choice, which is very central to your book. How do you sort of invite people to use their choice muscle?
Well, that's a great one. Actually, one of the things that I suggest people do is start living your life from 10-second increments. And people say, what do you mean? I say, well, okay, so what would you like to choose? And they go, I don't know. I say, okay, well, that lifetime's over. Now what would you like to choose? And they go, I don't know. And I say, okay, that lifetime's over. Now what would you like to choose? And they go, I'd like to choose to be happy. I'm like, cool, awesome. Now that lifetime's over. You have 10 seconds to choose the rest of your life. What do you choose? And they go, let's see. I'd like to fly to Hawaii. I'm like, okay, cool, awesome. So put that in motion. Now that lifetime's over. What else would you like to choose? And literally, I've asked people to take 3 minutes a day. And this is so funny, to ask somebody to take 3 minutes to do something that will actually give them an awareness that something as important as choice. But ask them to take 3 minutes a day and just walk outside and say, okay, everything I'm doing from the moment I step outside for the next 3 minutes is choice. So, okay, I'm going to walk over here and smell this flower. I'm going to look up at the sun. I'm going to turn this way. And it can sound so simple or even ridiculous. I thought it sounded ridiculous when I first started suggesting that people do this. And then people would come back and go, oh my gosh, I realized that even the way I move my body has been my choice. And then what I have to get into after that is one of the concepts that we have in Access that we found a long time ago is that 98% of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your points of view don't actually belong to you. You're walking around like a big psychic radio receiver, and you have ever since you were a little kid, which is why you act so much like your mom and dad, because you've been picking up on the way they handle the world ever since you were in the womb. And you've been perceiving it and picking up on these things. And when I say psychic, what I mean is you just have the capacity to pick up on the energies of everything around you, which is why you get depressed around depressed people, which is why you get angry around angry people or defensive around angry people, even if you didn't know they were depressed or angry. And so you start realizing that you actually, a lot of the things that we have as our points of view are things we picked up from other people and bought as ours, and that's why they don't work for us, because it's almost like we're living somebody else's life. And there's a real simple process you can do, which is ask, who does this belong to? Who does this belong to? To the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the judgments, the points of view you have, and anything else that makes you feel heavy. And literally, if it lightens up, it's not yours. If it changes, it's not yours. You just return it to sender and then go on through your day with only your thoughts in your head. And if you do that for 3 days, you'll walk around like you're in a walking, talking meditation.
You talk about questioning everything. That I thought was really pretty interesting when you start putting out these questions and then you have your clearing statement. Let's start with the questions. Why should we question everything?
Well, the thing is, a question empowers, an answer disempowers. And so what does that mean? Well, most of us have been taught to come to conclusion and then try to force that conclusion into existence, no matter what the world has to say about it or no matter what else could be contributed. It's like we're headed in one direction toward the goal, and we have these walls to the left and right. We can't see over them, around them, through them. But once you ask a question can be as simple as, what else is possible here? Or what would it take to change this? It's like literally doors open up, and energetic doors open up, and they have light and space and possibilities behind them. And it gives you a glimpse that it doesn't just have to be these walls, and it doesn't just have to be this rut you've been functioning from. A question always opens up other possibilities. And so if there's something you want to change in your life, you just ask. You start by going, okay, no matter what it takes, I'll change this, which is where you get to that point where you're finally willing to allow change to occur, no matter how it has to look for you. And then you can ask, what's it going to take to change this? What else is possible here? And how does it get any better than this? And what happens is, because most of us have these conclusions that things won't change, when you ask a question, it's like the universe goes, oh, finally you're willing to get my input on how this thing can change. And literally it starts to give it to you. But one of the other things that sticks us so much is we think that before we can change anything, we have to know the entire journey of 1,000 steps before we ever take the first step. No, your job is just to take the first step, because the second step isn't even there yet